It's late. I've been here for a while. And this is a video I've been putting off for a long time, but it is finally time to talk about this and why it confuses me to no end, but I love it. Okay, right off the bat, you should know this video is sponsored by Sweetwater. I was sent this. What you also should know is I've had it for literally months. Probably too long. They're probably a little upset that they hadn't heard anything. I apologize, Grace. I actually did talk about this on a podcast, Phantom Power Hour. I have a podcast with my buddy Josh. Go check it out on that channel. I'll put a link down below. As you guys know, on this channel, if I get sent something, I keep it for a long time. I really want to get to know it before I talk about it. I keep looking at my hair. It is so poofy. Yeah, it's not a good... Just ignore it. I was super excited to try this out when I first got it, and I immediately was a little confused. The form factor, I get it, theoretically. I really understand what you're going for. You want a preamp that you can put on your desktop. Grace, I was excited when that name even came up because one of the first studios I ever worked at, actually in the college that I used to go to, there was a Grace preamp, and it was the most transparent, gorgeous thing that I had ever worked on. And this is very reminiscent of that. Very transparent, very clean, but I'm confused. So if you're looking at it right off the bat, it looks like a guitar pedal, right? This thing is super confusing to me. I wish I could have been in the room when they were creating it or what the idea was because it's a weird thing. I'm worried that people won't like it because of its form factor. Let's just get into it here. The preamp on this thing is astonishing. It is the cleanest thing I've ever heard, and not in a cheap way. I feel like there's a thing where so many cheap interfaces or cheap preamps say they're clean or transparent. This is on a completely different world of clean. I really, really like it. If you look at the front of this thing, you have a boost, effects, and amp volume. Flip it over, you've got I/O for days on this guy. There's a mic or line in. That had me intrigued. You can use it as a line input, so it'll take a line from your DAW. Totally works if you want to use it as an interface and an EQ for guitar pedals in a mix context. Oh, and if I didn't say it already, it will do phantom power, so you can power whatever you want with this thing. Look over here, you've got some dip switches. You can turn it into a DI. One of the possible titles for this video was, I think they named it wrong, or I think they're marketing it wrong, that this could be in contention for one of the best bass DIs out there. And that it still could be, I stand by that. The flexibility of this thing is stupid, okay? You have a send and return on the effects loop that you can engage here. The boost, you can actually switch if you want that boost to work with the effects or not. Super handy, right? If you're using it in a guitar context, I want to boost into my amp, I totally can. I have a separate volume, how hard I push into that amp. Oh, by the way, that works if you're in mic or if you're going in as an instrument. Oh yeah, by the way, it powers pedals if you want it to. What is this thing? To add even more confusion to it, this EQ here, this is extremely reminiscent of a Neve EQ if you're just looking at it. Now, if you start twiddling these knobs here, you'll notice it's one of the cleanest EQs. On bass, I just goosed the lows just to see what was there. It is so clean. The low end you get back from this thing is so clean, and it's really cool. The mids are hyper useful. 175 all the way up to 4K. When do you see a knob that wide on any other pedal? But it's not a pedal, it's a preamp. And then you've got a high shelf that is just glorious. You're not gonna get harmonic saturation from this thing, which is part of the other reason it confuses me. It's like, okay, this looks like a 1073 style EQ, but it's really, really clean. The preamp is super duper clean, almost to the point of, not boring is the wrong thing. It's like hyper intimate, maybe. It's so high fidelity that it's right here. I've given it to a few players to try out and haven't told them anything about it. One was a bass player. I knew he was going to use it in that context and I wanted to see what he thought about it. That was Josh on Phantom Power Hour. Go check it out if you want his thoughts more in depth. But this is a crazy good bass DI. It's an insane guitar DI, as you would imagine. I wrote a song with it. Just being inspired by the sounds and sitting down with some pedals right here and playing. So if you want to see a disheveled, middle-aged engineer write a super melodramatic song about his kids growing up too fast, here you go. Come hold my hand like you always did. Come say my name the wrong way again, 'cause it's drifting away. I'm not ready to lose that part of you. I'm not ready to lose that part. I'm not ready to lose that part of you, and I'm not ready to fall apart without you. And I was using the Lewitt Pure Tube for this. I wanted to see how clean this thing was, because tube mics aren't really consistently known for being clean and not noisy, and put it with a super clean preamp. This thing boasts like a really low noise floor for a tube mic, and it has that in spades. This is an insanely clean preamp. Turns out these are great. Oh, and the colors actually go, I'm just noticing this, the colors go well, the greens. Who knew? Across the channel, you've heard this thing numerous times and you didn't even know it. It's been used on vocal preamps on different mic videos that I've done. It's been used on snare. On rooms. It's been used on bass, of course. I have used this thing in so many different contexts in the studio because I really wanted to wrap my head around what is this good at? And I can't find one thing that it excels at, because it excels honestly at all of them. And I realize how that sounds. Trust me, I realize how that sounds. Who is this for? Is it for studio people? Typically you'd want to see something like that in a rack, and as far as I can tell, and I've looked, there is no racked version of this with this amount of I/O and this flexibility. Is this for a live player who's like a sax or horn player? It would be perfect in that situation. Is this for a singer, a frontman in a band who wants to incorporate different effects? Is this for a singer-songwriter who just has one crazy good preamp and wants to do a whole lot with it? I think it's for all of those people. And we even joked on the podcast that they should release this pedal in different colors and brand it differently each time, because I kind of think it would do better. The weird part about a product like this, it's so cool and so useful and so different, unique maybe, that I don't think it's gonna do very well. I don't want to say I don't think it's gonna do well. My fear is that it won't do well, or people will give it another look, because it's not quite a pedal, it's not quite a racked piece of gear, it's like both of those things mashed together, but man. So forgive me that I seem a little all over the place with this one. If you want my opinion, for whatever that's worth, this thing is incredible. It sounds great. The flexibility and the inspiration that comes from this box has sold it for me. The quality of preamp and EQ, to me, is well worth the price. If it were a rack unit, I would say this is darn cheap. Darn cheap. But I feel like because it's a pedal, we have this perception that it's really expensive, because it is way more expensive than most pedals. Coming at it from the bass side, this is gonna really ruffle some feathers. If this were marketed just as a bass DI, with an onboard EQ, tuner out, amp out, a boost, a really killer EQ, I think it puts in contention a lot of other bass DIs. Put up the Noble. It's not really the same thing. The Noble's going for very much a sound, that 1073, like big saturated sound, and there's a little bit of an EQ there. I get it, it's a thing. This, if you wanted to put like a saturation in the send and return, you could. You have ultimate flexibility, and it's less than half the price. So this is a crazy useful tool that I will continue to use for a long time. Grace, you freaking knocked it out of the park with this thing. I had it and used it for a very long time before I ever put it out here, because I couldn't wrap my head around what this was. I wanted to find a weak point, and at every turn, I enjoyed the process. It kind of gave me that knob twister feeling that I wanted. Like, I mean, come on, I could hook up my Pog to a vocal mic. The other thing that I do appreciate about this, and you'll see in videos moving forward, because this is so clean, I'm learning things about my microphones that I didn't know, that maybe I was thinking were a preamp decision or a compressor decision. Everything is laid to bear with something this clean, and it's really cool. And the transients are really fast on it too. I could keep talking, but I should stop. This is a long video already. What's the price on this bad boy? $895. For a preamp that does what this thing does and have a killer EQ as well, that's a crazy good price. You're gonna struggle to find something even in the 500 series realm that could rival this kind of a preamp in a 500 series factor, and then you have to have the rack to go with it. And you have it in this weird form factor that has an effects loop, has a tuner out, has an amp out, has a dedicated DI output, and you can use all of those simultaneously if you want to. A mute tune button for if you're using it in like a guitar context or bass context. I feel like I'm overselling this, but my concern is it's not going to be taken seriously because it's weird. It's a weird product, but this is something that I'm super excited about. And I don't think I've nerded out and dived deeper into something in a very long time. If you like this, hit the like button, hit subscribe if you're new. I'm Resident Loser Jeremy, and I'll see you in the next one.